Welcome to the S&D 50. This week, we are talking top 50 transfer portal classes in 2026. For those who are new, this is a show that performance, rates, and ranks all 136 college football teams. Spencer, welcome in. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It was so fun to do all the data behind these transfer classes. It was a blast.
12,000 rows we scraped of individual player stats and all of the transfer stats. We've been grinding. Jacob, how are you, my friend? Welcome in.
Great, because I'm the one here who did not scrape one bit of that data, and I just get to come and look at it all beautifully presented and then talk about it.
Well, let's get right into it. For those who have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. We provide you hyper-focused, bias-free college football content all year round. If you already have subscribed, thank you so much for being part of our community. Share this with your friends, like the video. We appreciate all of you. Now, Spencer, let's get right into these top 50 portal classes. There are so many websites out there that have portal rankings based on the stars that the athletes were coming out of high school, out of random metrics just called rating performance. What makes our portal class rankings different than all these other websites?
Yeah, it's a great question. And not to discredit the work that's done out there. I think PFF is really thorough, for example, in their player ratings, but a lot of it's based on kind of what people think they're going to do. We decided to take the approach like we do with our model. If we're going to have a performance-based model, we want to have performance-based transfer ratings. Drew mentioned at the top of the show that we scraped data. We scraped player data for every player who logged any performance minutes at all in the FBS this year. And that is the basis of our portal ranking. So for example, let's take Washington State as a starter. So Washington State finished 7-6. They were one of the lone Pac-2 teams out there. They're going to be in the new rebranded, reformed Pac-12 this year. And when people talk about transfers, the easiest thing to look at is how many people came in, how many people left. And so we looked at Washington State. They had 12 transfers come in and 25 transfers go out. Now, that doesn't tell us a lot. If we were to look at those players' star ratings, it might tell us a little bit more. But what we tried to look at is what is the value of those 25 players out? What is the value of those 12 players in? We looked at all of their stats and came up with a rating impact. Those of you who've been around the show know that we rate teams on a performance-based model. Those ratings tend to fall somewhere in the 4,000 to 6,000 range, depending on where you are. And we determined that the net impact, despite losing 25 players and only getting 12, the net impact on their rating is 31.2 points. That essentially says they're getting a production improvement in the 12 players that they're taking in than the 25 players they're letting go. Which, to be fair, isn't super surprising, right? When people have players transfer out, it's probably because they don't feel like they're getting a lot of playing time. Therefore, they're probably not producing a lot. There's obvious exceptions to that rule. Looking at you, Darian Mensah. That's how it goes. Now, we also wanted to look at what this would do to their rank. As you know, we are a rating model, but when you rate teams, you can stack rank them. And we said, what would this do to Washington State's rank if the only thing we did was consider their number 43 finish, added in these transfer changes, and took nothing else into consideration? No coach movements, nothing else. Well, it would take them from number 43 to number 41. And that's how we came up with our portal classes. We looked at each player's performance, shuffled those teams around based on where they're going, and boom, you've got your class. Washington State's class included players like Kamari Terrell out of Texas State, a cornerback who played good minutes for Texas State. It included Jalen Thomas, cornerback from San Jose State. I mean, they were poaching from Mountain West schools. They picked up a defensive lineman out of Vanderbilt. They were spreading it out as they were pulling in people. We saw a lot of impact from the players that were coming into Washington State, less impact from players such as Carter Pabst, who left Washington State for Iowa State, following their coach. Kenny Wark going to Cincinnati. We did see departures from those players, but overall, we saw bigger impact from the players coming in than the players going out.
And when it comes to weighting these players, we said how much of the performance of your team can be attributed to that player, correct?
Yeah, we looked at what are your production stats. So for quarterback, it's things like yards, touchdowns, interceptions, For receivers and running backs, it's your yards from scrimmage. What does that impact look like in your production, your touchdowns? As a defensive player, we're looking at not only tackles, but also takeaways, forced fumbles. Pass defense was a big metric that we were able to pull data for our cornerbacks and our D-backs and safeties. And so we were able to pull all this together and weight your team's value, right? We have a rating for every team, so that's value. Figure out what your player value is on that team based on your proportion of your team's overall production. So if you were the leading tackler on your team and you led the defense in takeaways as well, you better believe you're going to get a huge, huge chunk of points in attribution for that kind of defensive effort.
Once we figured out how much production a player had for their team, we then accounted for where that team fit in the landscape of all 136 and smoothed it out accordingly, right?
Right. Now, it's exactly like that. Now, you are going to see an outsized impact from quarterbacks. A starting quarterback moving teams is going to make a big difference to both the team it left and the team that it came to. So the biggest points moved for individual players, you're looking at Drew Mestamaker, Alonzo Barnett, Byron Brown, right? These are your quarterbacks. Darian Mensah actually came in number 5 on our impact list. That's where the biggest point movements came from. But for a lot of these teams with a lot of transfers in and out, those players add up regardless of the position. We're the S&D 50. What are we going to do if we're not talking about all 50 teams? So Washington State comes in at number 50. And this is how we're going to look at all 50 teams in our top 50 portal classes today.
At number 49, we have Clemson. 10 transfers in, 12 transfers out. They increased their rank from the end of 2025 from 46 to 43. Also something to note here, Spencer, we're not saying your rank next year is 43, correct?
That's right. That's actually super good call out. This is if we took your final ranking and the only thing we did was adjust your rating based on the transfer class. This doesn't account for coaching changes. This doesn't account for graduating seniors. This doesn't account freshmen, redshirt players, doesn't account for any of that activity, just your transfers in and out.
At number 48, we have Iowa. 16 in, 7 out, rank from 16 to 14.
These are going to be pretty tightly packed down here in the 50 to 40s to 30s because we haven't hit to the starting QB schools. Once we get to the schools where you had a starting QB arrive from another school, one in particular where they did good things, that's where you're going to see these impacts really start to jump.
At number 47, Ball State. This feels jarring, and Ball State only takes in 3 players and loses 7.
Ball State bringing in some SEC talent. They bring in an offensive tackle, Misael Sandoval, coming in from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he's definitely the leading impact player on that team. You know, they're also bringing in Jabari Smith Jr., a wide receiver from FAU.
They got a tight end from Rutgers coming in, so there's some Big Ten talent.
We did talk a lot about what do we do with the FCS, and we're going to be totally transparent right here. FCS players are treated to our model less like transfers and more like new freshmen. We don't know what their FBS production is going to look like. If you're like Jacob and you're an FCS sicko, you probably know that there's diamonds in the rough out there that our model's not even catching with this rating impact.
At number 46, FAU. 12 in, 7 out. The rating impact moves them up 1 spot from 100 to 99.
They got a junior offensive lineman out of Georgia Tech in Ben Galloway. We just mentioned that they actually lost a receiver to Ball State. They're picking up a receiver out of New Mexico State that was a really high-producing receiver on that team.
Linebacker out of TCU. They got a Virginia Tech wide receiver. The Ohio Bobcats sent an edge over to Florida Atlantic. Texas Tech sending a wide receiver. They're getting some big-name school talent headed their way.
At number 45, Kansas State. New coach, new team. Note, when a new coach is coming into a team, we see lots of transfers in, lots of transfers out. Kansas State, no exception. 27 in, 22 out. They up their rank impact by 6 spots.
The biggest win for Kansas State, though, was keeping Avery Johnson for another year. One of their biggest goals as new coaching staff was to keep Johnson around. I think he's going to develop really well. Their new coach, Colin Klein, quarterback at Kansas State himself, was actually the one who I believe initially recruited Avery Johnson to Kansas State before going to run the offense at Texas A&M. Pulling in an offensive tackle from Auburn, an offensive lineman actually out of Akron that was did really well there, enough to catch the attention of Kansas State, get pulled in there. An offensive lineman out of Colorado State to really shore up that protection for Avery Johnson, which was lacking last year. I think that they're going to be pretty dangerous with a better protected quarterback.
Here's the transfer that I've not heard anybody talking about. Elijah Hill coming in from Kennesaw State. Elijah Hill, an edge rusher, had 9 sacks as a freshman at Kennesaw last year. That man held the defense down, carried that team defensively, and now he's headed to Manhattan. That's big time for them.
At number 44, we have New Mexico, 6 transfers in, 5 transfers out. The rating impact goes up almost 40 points, yet New Mexico's rank impact drops from 32 to 34.
This is a case of not a very big class. Not a lot of change for New Mexico. 32 to 34 is pretty misleading. They're basically in the exact same spot. But this just refers to the fact that there are some teams that were below them that made a good jump based on their portal class.
The transfer that intrigues me the most with New Mexico is they got a backup QB from Oregon, Luke Moga. He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school. In high school, he ran track where he ran a 10-4 100-meter dash. He might be able to step in for the Lobos and get them rolling and get that elusive Mountain West title.
At number 43, Hawaii. Hawaii won that great game against Cal to end the 2025 season. 7 transfers in, 3 out. Rank impact jumps 4 spots.
Yeah, and they picked up an offensive tackle, Khalil Walker, out of USF. Every time I think about Hawaii, I can't help but think about how they don't have the best transfer class every year. I mean, it's Hawaii. In the era where players can get paid to go play football, go get paid to play football in Hawaii.
I am just looking forward to seeing Hawaii head to the Fargo Dome in North Dakota.
The Mountain West now goes from sea to shining dome. At number 42, the Oregon Ducks. Kind of shocking to see them this low here. 15 transfers in, 27 out. Rank impact, though, only 1 spot from number 3 to number 4 in the entire FBS.
They had a big pickup in terms of overall points with Dylan Raiola. This is one of those exceptions to that quarterback rule I mentioned. He brought in more than 100 points to their rating, but Oregon lost a bunch of players. Blake Purchase, an edge rusher. He's actually going to Ole Miss. Dalen Austin, a cornerback, heading into the Big 12 to go play for Arizona. Tyler Casper, a receiver, going to BYU. These aren't your Dante Moore level stars, but you've got a bunch of solid role players that can take bench minutes but still produce, flooding out of the school. And so that's that 27 out, 15 in. Meant that a lot of that pickup of Dylan Raiola was offset, and they only went up about 50 points.
You know, a funny story about Oregon. Oregon goes and plays in their final bowl game. They get worked over by Indiana, obviously. And I was listening to the father of a high recruit. He also runs a recruiting business, and he came on a radio show talking about the recruiting world and also his kid getting recruited, and Oregon was recruiting him. And he said his visit was scheduled for the morning after that game. So that coaching staff got their butts kicked by Kirk Cinetti, took a red eye back to across the country, back to Oregon. And he said at 7 a.m. the next morning, those coaches were recruiting their son. Literally met him in the facility at 7 a.m. that morning to give him his visit. There's a look at college football for you. Their hearts just got ripped out, but no time to mourn. They don't get any sleep, and they're back to work recruiting. Now, they didn't land that recruit, but I just thought that was a cool story to hear about Oregon.
At number 41, NC State. 18 transfers in, 23 transfers out. NC State keeps C.J. Bailey, their starting quarterback. Rank impact up 1 spot.
Yeah, and C.J. Bailey totaled 31 touchdowns, over 3,000 yards passing. That's huge. There was a lot of rumors swirling that bigger name teams wanted him and were offering big money. So big win. The biggest win might not be anyone they brought in, but who they kept.
At number 40, Mississippi State. Mississippi State was 5-8 in 2025. They bring in 24. 24 go out the door. Rank impact up 5.
Okay, the transfer that gets me with this, and this is so Mississippi State, is Jaden Rashada, quarterback out of Sacramento State. He's the man who originally committed to Florida because he was promised some giant NIL deal coming out of high school, but then controversy surrounded it, and he said he didn't get it. And I think he also committed to Georgia at some point, finally ended up at Arizona State, flamed out there, went to the FCS ranks at Sacramento State. Did not have a good year there either. He's headed back to the big boys at Mississippi State.
If at first you don't succeed, try again in Starkville.
I can't imagine they're paying him much. Like, he did not have a good year at Sacramento State. There was a lot of hype because I think he might have been a former number 1 recruit in his class. He's already been to 4 different schools, and I think he's only a junior this year.
Yeah, and they also picked up A.J. Swan, quarterback out of App State, who started a handful of games for them last year, so that was a pretty decent impact to that transfer rating.
At number 39, Utah. Kyle Whittingham leaves. Morgan Scally arrives. 13 transfers in, 14 transfers out. Rank impact up 2 spots.
They picked up an offensive lineman out of Ohio State, Isaiah Kemma, but their biggest pickups were actually on the defensive side. They had to replace All-American John Henry Daly. They actually picked up a really good player out of North Texas, Ethan Day, a senior edge rusher out of North Texas, and then picked up a good cornerback out of USF as well. So did a pretty decent job replacing talent, not All-American level, but still managed to come out net positive.
At number 38, the Nittany Cyclones, first appearance here in the Matt Campbell era. 37 transfers in, 43 transfers out. Rank impact from 28 to 20.
And you want to know how many were from Iowa State? 22 of them.
That's both sides of the ball, full teams.
They pulled in 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive linemen. They could almost field a team just with those transfers. You got Rocco Beck back there.
So the feared mass exodus turns out to not be such a bad thing, according to the performance of last year.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Virginia Tech on this list. That player movement goes both ways, but it ended up being a net positive for Penn State despite losing 43 players to the portal.
At number 37, San Diego State. Great season in 2025. Just missed the Mountain West title game. 20 transfers in, 8 out. Rank impact up 6 spots.
Yeah, 2 of their biggest producing pickups that they grabbed, they actually raided those Ohio Bobcats. Got Jalen Thomason, a safety, and from Oregon, they pulled in Justice Lowe, a wide receiver, senior wide receiver out of Oregon. Didn't get a lot of playing time at Oregon, but was able to produce a little bit for that high-octane offense. Offensive linemen from Indiana and Michigan State.
I like their FCS pickups. They got a really good freshman quarterback from the Vandals, Idaho Vandals. They got another really good linebacker from Weber State, reloading that defense, a solid defensive lineman from Portland State. They went after the Big Sky on the FCS level, and I'm a Big Sky sicko, and they got some solid players.
At number 36, BYU. 9 transfers in, 6 transfers out. Rank impact up 1 spot from 12 to 11.
BYU picking up Cade Lave out of Cal. You got Mississippi State's Javen Williams, a cornerback coming in. We've already mentioned Kyler Casper, the receiver out of Oregon. Not surprising here, but they also picked up Walker Lyons, a tight end out of USC. His brother is an inbound quarterback to BYU this coming year.
At number 35, Tulsa. 25 transfers in, 9 transfers out. Rank impact up 7 spots. The Tulsa transfer portal house that they advertised seemed to have worked pretty well.
They got Old Dominion running back Traquan Jones. They got a running back out of New Mexico, DJ McKinney. Actually grabbed Kennesaw State's, I believe, their backup quarterback Dexter Williams. Tulsa's going to field a good squad in the American this year.
And that's a great point about Dexter Williams coming in from Kennesaw. Yes, he was a backup, Spencer, but he had a lot of playing time. He got in every game. Maybe we got a dark horse in the American.
At number 34, Dilly, Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State. 25 transfers in, 16 transfers out. Rank impact up 7 spots, even with Sam Levitt leaving.
Even with Sam Levitt leaving, they had positive impact. Leading the way here, it's on the defensive side. They got an outstanding freshman cornerback from FIU in Josiah McGrow. They got a senior safety out of Kansas in Lyric Rawls, a linebacker out of Colorado State in Owen Long. And these aren't just like gimme players. These are producing players that were really putting up minutes and stats for their teams.
Back out of Michigan and Mikey Keene.
Yep, no credit there, though. That's a red shirt.
At number 33, the Cal Golden Bears. 31 transfers in, 20 transfers out. Rank impact up 10 spots from 89 to 79.
And unsurprisingly, pulled several players from Oregon, not necessarily starters, but players who were able to log a few minutes there who are going to plan to take on a bigger role on their new team, including Kingston Lopa, a safety, Jericho Johnson, a lineman. Some of those coaching moves have impacts on the players as well. That's only going to become more apparent as we get to the top of this list.
But one of their biggest losses is a former 5-star QB out of Corner Canyon, Utah, headed to Weber State, baby. Devin Brown, let's go.
Big Sky fanatic up here.
At number 32, another team coached by someone Jacob loves near and dear to his heart, the Temple Owls. 22 transfers in, 8 transfers out. Rank impact from 92 to 83. Casey Keeler is doing his thing at Temple.
Gosh, Casey Keeler should have had Trinidad Chambliss. Lane Kiffin stole Trinidad from Casey Keeler. Temple just missed bowl eligibility this year at 5-7. It will not happen again this year. As you can see, putting together a class, they go to all sorts of ranks, pulling from FCS, G5, P5 teams. Casey knows where to look, and let's look out for Temple next year.
At number 31, Liberty. Liberty was 4-8 last year. 17 transfers in, 8 out. Rank impact only from 102 to 98.
They better. They're paying their coach $5 million a year for Conference USA football. So he better start pulling in talent.
They were able to pick up a couple of senior running backs from Wyoming and Arizona State, respectively. They've got a offensive tackle out of NC State and Valen Erickson, Alex Burkmeyer, an offensive lineman from Penn State. You know, this is a team whose aspirations include Conference USA title.
This is a program that cracked the New Year's Six bowl games back in the day. They drew an undefeated season, and so if that happened again, they'd be in the playoffs. One of the players I'm most interested in on Liberty's team is Kanye Udo. Now, Udo originally started playing football for Army. He put up great numbers there. I think he left with his offensive line coach when he went over to Arizona State last year. Everyone thought he was going to be the man to replace Cam Scatteraboo. Things just never quite worked out there at Arizona State, so now he's looking for a bounce-back year at Liberty. I think he's going to get it with the Flames. Excited to see what happens there on the running back side.
At number 30, SMU. 16 in, 13 out. Rank impact from 25 to 17.
Okay, should we start talking about SMU winning the ACC next year?
Miami better look out.
They beat them this year, and they still got their QB, right?
SMU's class, it's a lot of skill players on both sides of the ball. They got Jarvis Lee, cornerback out of USF. Jimmy Wyrick, safety out of UTSA. We'll see how he does without that crowd noise. Running back Kendrick Raphael out of Cal. Yannick Smith, wide receiver out of East Carolina. Those are their 4 highest producing inbound transfers per our model. So it'll be fun to see how those teams can mesh into what really is a high-octane offense and an aggressive defense in the way that SMU runs their schemes.
At number 29, Minnesota, PJ Fleck brings in 18, 10 go out. Rank impact from 50 to 39. Number 28, Baylor. Baylor had a 5-7 season in 2025. 27 transfers in, 23 out. Rank impact 73 to 58. Can Baylor be competitive this year in the Big 12?
We all know who the big transfer team is in the Big 12. We already know how good they were last year. We haven't even seen them show up on our top 50. At this point, it does feel like spend that money or get totally left behind, and this is Baylor making a good faith attempt to do exactly that. DJ Lagway, we'll see how he can affect the offense if he can avoid being injured.
I feel like that was a transfer commit that didn't get a lot of publicity.
It felt like it was overshadowed by everything that happened with Darian Mensah, honestly. Now that we're in these plus 100, plus 200 impact schools and above, this is where you're going to start seeing those starting quarterbacks come out.
At number 27, Arizona. 21 transfers in, 14 out.
If I'm in the Big 12 and I'm not Arizona, I'm a little bit worried. After a 9-3 season, a solid incoming transfer portal class, are you kidding me?
At number 26, Wake Forest. Wake Forest also had a 9-4 season. 24 transfers in, 9 out. Rank impact from 36 to 26 in the entire FBS. Who'da thunk it?
I mean, just the fact that Wake Forest finished 9-4 was always a surprise to me, but it's not totally surprising when you think about it. They're picking up a good class, got a couple of receivers, one from ACC rival Duke, one from UTEP that produced really well on their teams. You got Brian Blades, quarterback out of FIU coming in. These are teams that maybe if you don't follow the S&D 50 or if you're not a sicko, you wouldn't have heard of these transfer players, but the production ratings speak for themselves. These are impact players. They're going to make a difference in improving Wake Forest next year.
At number 25, Spencer's Louisville Cardinals bring in 32 transfers, 23 go out. And Louisville jumps from 35 to 25 in rank impact.
Hey, I'll take it, but I'll take the coach staying put even more.
At number 24, Kentucky, one spot ahead of those Cardinals. 30 transfers in, 20 transfers out. A new head coach on the scene. Rank impact from 71 to 54. How about it, Jacob? Kentucky's already in the 50s. I think they could call it a season.
No reason to play.
They got their money's worth. At number 23, Houston. Houston finished 2025 at 10-3. Most people would not have thought that they finished with 10 wins, but they did. 17 transfers in, 9 out. Rank impact from 34 to 23.
They're number 23 in both transfers and where their rank would land. Funny alignment there. I also see Houston popping up in, every preseason way too early top 25 list I've seen just out there in the wild. We're effectively saying Houston's the third or fourth best team in the Big 12. There's nothing wrong with that. I think they're a good team. I think that Willie Fritz is a great coach. I don't think about them like that. It surprises me every time I see them on there.
At number 22, Northwestern, the most dangerous 6-6 team. 16 transfers in, 6 out. Rank impact from 49 to 36. New stadium incoming next year, correct?
Yeah, picking up Michigan State's Aiden Childs. Grabbed Gavin Sawchuk, running back out of Florida State. And hey, stealing from the MAC too. Got cornerback from the Chippewas.
The new Ryan Field debuts October 2nd, hosting Penn State on a Friday night.
That'll be a fun one. Could be the sicko game of the week.
Could be. At number 21, Memphis. Memphis has a new head coach. 51 transfers in, 25 transfers out. Rank impact from 72 to 53. Jacob, you had high expectations for Charles Huff, and he delivers in this transfer portal class.
Yes, he does, bringing in players from Indiana, Virginia, Michigan State, Syracuse, Southern Miss. He's got some of them coming along. I think Charles Huff is going to take Memphis to actually that true G5 contender for a playoff spot.
At number 20, Miami. Miami was very close to making a national championship at home happen. 12 transfers in, 17 out. Rank impact stays the same. Number 2 overall. Darian Mensah, a big reason why.
Yeah, that pickup basically kept the transfer wolves at bay in terms of other really strong transfer classes sneaking up on them. Darian Mensah, as I mentioned before, only our 5th highest rated QB in terms of production rating that they're taken from Duke to Miami.
At number 19, Nebraska. No Dylan Raiola, no problem. 16 transfers in, 16 out. Rank impact from 61 to 45.
They got a good QB as well, picking up UNLV's Anthony Calandria.
At number 18, Illinois. 17 transfers in, 19 transfers out. Rank impact, though, 33 to 21.
You know who's driving that, right? Caden Hauser, ECU quarterback.
Yeah, big one. That's big.
Huge.
He
Yeah.
balled out. Is he ranked above Mensa?
He is not. Actually, Mensa, Calandria, and Hauser fall 5, 6, and 7 on our impact player list.
Interesting hire came out today as we're recording this Monday, February 9th, about them hiring Montana's head coach as their new defensive coordinator. So interesting. He spent 14 years at Montana, 2 different stints, both stints about like 6 or 7 years each. Never won a title there, but took him to the title game a couple times. Good coach. And he just like last week, he announced he's retiring. And then this week, all of a sudden we hear he's now the D coordinator at Illinois. What happened in Montana? I don't know, but that's a solid pickup on their coaching staff.
At number 17, oh no, Jacob, Arkansas. 41 transfers in, 24 out. Rank impact from 94 to 78. Is it time to eat crow, or do you want to wait and see?
I'll wait and see. I ain't believing in him just yet.
Now, 78 is not 78 in the entire FBS. May leave a lot to be desired, but hey, it's an improvement from last year.
Of those 41 inbound transfers, guess how many came from Memphis? Just 7 of those 41 were coach following transfers from Memphis. They got a spread of people coming to the University of Arkansas.
At number 16, Purdue. Purdue had a 2-10 season, not great in Barry Odom's first year. 28 transfers in, 13 transfers out. Rank impact from 110 to 94.
Well, it's not hard to improve from where you're coming from. I don't even know who Purdue got.
I'll tell you some of the people they got. I mean, some of their highest producing players included Mr. Clark. That's not a joke. That is the cornerback's first name is Mr. Clark out of FIU. They got a receiver, Asad Wasim, out of FAU. Got a couple of linemen from USC, South Carolina. Picked up some folks from Colorado, Michigan, Iowa State, UCF. These are all players that were not starters on their teams, but were productive on the offensive or defensive side of the ball when they did have playing time, were able to impact their team's rating last season, and now they're bringing that impact to Purdue. And in this case, Purdue didn't necessarily lose a lot of high-producing people, but they're picking up people who, they're not going to necessarily be the starter at Michigan or Texas, but if you can come over to Purdue as a running back, if you're Jarrett Gibson out of Texas or, Jaden Mangum, a safety out of Michigan, all of a sudden you're a starter for a Big Ten team. That's a big impact.
At number 15, Syracuse. Syracuse had a year that left a lot to be desired last year, but this year, 18 transfers in, 16 out. Rank impact 121 to 108. Welcome back from the cellar.
And is Kyle McCord back?
I knew a Kyle McCord reference was coming. I was going to make it myself, but I'm glad you did.
Does he have any eligibility left or the ability to sue the state of New York for eligibility?
They may not have Kyle McCord, but they somehow landed the former number 1 overall QB from his high school class, Malachi Nelson, who originally committed to USC, then went to Boise State, then went to UTEP, and now he's on his way to Syracuse.
And you know what? He's going to be in a quarterback battle at Syracuse against Amari Odom, the Kennesaw State quarterback who transferred to Syracuse.
It won't be a battle. Odom will win that, and Nelson will be the backup.
At number 14, West Virginia. Rich Rod brings in 34. 22 go out. Rank impact from 90 to 65.
Yeah, and you'll notice, too, we're in the top 15 now. These rating impacts are in the 200s. We started in the 50, right around, 34, I think was that rating impact, 31. Funnily enough, we actually only had just over 60 teams that even netted a positive impact in the portal this year. There were more teams that had a negative net impact of outflow that were forced to pick up players from the FCS or, just the good old-fashioned recruiting thing, which is not to say they're not going to produce, but our model doesn't pick it up. Biggest names to West Virginia, Cam Cook, running back out of Jacksonville State.
Whoa.
Kamari Wilson, safety. What?
That's huge.
Whoa, we love Cam Cook on this show. Right, Jacob?
Yeah, that's huge. He balled.
He's
Yeah.
a
Like, that guy's
stud.
good.
It's a big pickup. He accounts for 40 points alone of that 244.
As he should.
And they got a lineman out of Jacksonville State as well, Cameron Griffin. They got some defensive players like Kamari Wilson, the safety out of Memphis, Andrew Powdrell, cornerback out of UNLV. Conference USA was affected by Rich Rod's recruiting, that's for sure.
I have my Brian Windhorst fingers up. Why is Cam Cook going to West Virginia, Jacob? Where did Rich Rod coach prior to being the head coach at West Virginia?
Jacksonville State.
The pipeline already built in. At number 13, Texas A&M. 16 transfers in, 11 transfers out. Rank impact from 10 to 5. Can Mike Elko get over the hump? Spencer, who did the Aggies bring in?
Aggies brought in a lot of offensive linemen who played limited time at other schools, but are bringing in experience. Wilkin Formby out of Alabama and Tyree Adams out of LSU. But some of those impact players that you're going to, see on the field in those skill positions include Alabama wide receiver Isaiah Horton and Colorado safety Tafik Bayard. That was a big pickup for Texas A&M out of the Big 12.
Guys, I feel kind of bad for Colorado and Dion. They looked like they were on the precipice of NIL, doing it the right way, and now it just feels like everyone just keeps leaving there.
At number 12, Indiana. Kurt Signetti does not take a step back. 17 transfers in, 8 transfers out. Rank impact, still number 1 overall.
Yeah, now we're not accounting for a Heisman quarterback leaving the team. That's going to have an impact, but we are accounting for the number 8 quarterback on our list, Josh Hoover out of TCU.
An offensive lineman from Wisconsin, a solid kicker from Troy, cornerback from Penn State, a wide receiver from Tulane. Kirk Signetti just did one of the most Kirk Signetti things that I've seen, bringing in a freshman from the FCS national champs of Montana State, Carson Williams. That man balled, was one of the best players in the Big Sky, one of the best defensive backs in the FCS. That's a big one, and he's going to get on the field immediately and make immediate impact.
Number 11, LSU. 40 transfers in, 34 transfers out. Lane Kiffin gets to work. Rank impact, 53 to 35.
Unsurprising, leading the way here for them is Sam Levitt out of Arizona State. Not even in our top 20 QB impacts, though, because was limited by injury, so was not as productive as those who started every game last year. Some other big pickups for them are Ty Benefield, a safety out of Boise State. TJ Daugherty out of Ole Miss coming over with Lane Kiffin to join that LSU defense.
How many Ole Miss players went from Ole Miss to LSU, Spencer?
Only 4.
Huh. Interesting. Penn State had a pretty good portal class. Virginia Tech had a better portal class. At number 10, James Franklin brings in 25 transfers, 16 go out. Rank impact, 103 to 81. Spencer, how many Penn State players followed James Franklin to the Hokies?
Out of their 25 players, 12 came from Penn State, led by none other than Ethan Grunkemeyer.
So we're about to see if the Big Ten really is better than the ACC.
Sure are.
As the Penn State squad takes the field against the ACC competition. I got a shout out here. Devin Alves, a junior safety, is transferring out of Virginia Tech to Hawaii. How many miles are between Blacksburg, Virginia, and the University of Hawaii? 4,790. He moved nearly 5,000 miles across the globe to go play college football.
Much better weather. At number 9, Kansas. 5-7 in 2025. 30 transfers in, 6 transfers out. Rank impact, 76 to 49.
Yeah, and their biggest impact player here, quarterback Chase Jenkins out of Rice University, stepping up from the American to the Big 12. We'll see if that impact can carry over, but they had some good pickups across the board from the ranks of the group of five. Nick McMillan, senior wide receiver out of Buffalo. Jabril Al-Amin, a senior linebacker out of Marshall. Eamon Smalls, defensive lineman out of UAB. The list goes on. This is, maybe more quantity over individual quantity behind this rating, but these are players who logged starters minutes at their G5 programs in a lot of cases.
They got an offensive tackle out of Missouri and Braden Solis, and this is the one that pops at me, Dylan Edwards out of Kansas State. You guys remember Dylan Edwards at Colorado? His freshman year, playing for Dion, running that ball everywhere. He transferred to Kansas State, and things just never quite worked out. He had some injuries last year, never was able to get the ball rolling, and now he's headed to Kansas. That's a big one for their backfield.
Yeah, another big pickup for them actually was Connor Stroh, offensive lineman, 6'7" offensive lineman out of the University of Texas. I know we don't talk about non-production stats, but that height, when I was looking over these transfers, I was like, that is a big guy. That was one beast of a human. I think he was 247s. He was in their top 20 interior lineman rating for their transfers. So another good pickup for Kansas.
The Sunflower Showdown will be in Manhattan this year.
Dylan Edwards must face the music in front of his former fans.
He's going to face it hard, too, because how he left, he was one of those players who played like their 4 games and then entered the portal so they could redshirt this year. So Kansas State fans were not happy about him bailing on the team before the year was even done.
At number 8, UCF. 5-7 in 2025, 31 transfers in, 29 out. Yet, rank impact from 83 to 47. Maybe the bounce house starts bouncing again.
Well, you know who UCF's biggest pickup is, right? Alonzo Barnett III, quarterback out of James Madison, bringing over serious production value. We talk about how big of an impact we think a quarterback has on their team. You want to guess out of that 370, how much of that he accounts for on his own?
125.
Double that.
Holy.
More than 250 points. Woo!
Wow.
It's
quarterbacks, starting
he's
quarterbacks who log good seasons before transferring make a huge difference on their team. So actually, speaking of how that comes out with our other quarterbacks on this list, not UCF's list, but overall, Alonzo Barnett we have as the number 2 quarterback in the portal this year.
Number 7, the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. 21 transfers in, 19 out, but they have rank impact from 9 to 3. Oh my money. Texas Tech reloads.
Hey, half of that is Brennan Sorsby, starting quarterback from Cincinnati. Played in almost every game. I think he was injured once or twice this past year. Brings in nearly 200 points of that production value.
At number 6, Jacob. What do you say now? Colorado, 3-9 in 2025, 41 transfers in, 27 out. Rank impact from 106 to 74. Dion loses and Dion takes.
He lost a lot, so he had to.
He did.
I tell you what, he lost a lot of starters. So, gosh, I don't even know where. Spencer, tell me, who's he bringing in?
He's bringing in experience. I'll tell you what, he's poached offensive linemen from Missouri, from Houston, Rutgers, Cal, all seniors, all logged minutes, if not outright starters for their teams. He brought in Justin Eaglin from James Madison, their starting cornerback. Brought in Randon Fontenette, a safety from Vanderbilt. Like, you've got a lot of pickups here. This 41, again, a lot of this is going to be quantity over individual quality. There's no starting QBs on this list, but it's a lot of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, some receivers, some corners. Like, it's a healthy mix. And they're poaching from all over the place to rebuild.
And they're going to need it because they lost Jordan Seaton, starting offensive tackle, to LSU. They lost a starting quarterback to Notre Dame. So they lost talent. So I hope you're right, Spencer, that I like Dion. I do. I like him, and I hope I hope they can rebound after this disappointing year.
At number 5, Virginia. Virginia, 11-3 in 2025. Heartbreaking, no CFP appearance yet. 28 transfers in, 9 out. Rank impact from 27 to 12. Virginia trying to make amends and not let last year repeat itself.
This is these top teams, it's driven by quarterbacks. You know who they picked up? Bo Pribula out of Missouri.
With a healthy leg, that could be something. And they just played in the bowl game. That's kind of fascinating. Do you think there was a little tampering during that game?
Tackle him to the ground. Hey, come play for us.
Okay, where's Bo Pribula ranked in the S&D index among transfer QBs?
He didn't log as many minutes, so he wasn't as highly rated, but he came in at number 10 on our list, just behind Brendan Sorsby, just above Amari Odom.
Okay, so if he plays the whole year, he's ahead of Sorsby according to the S&D.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, in terms of production.
I mean,
And Tech paid a lot of money for Sorsby.
Yep. That's a big pickup for Tony Elliott. At number 4, Auburn. 39 transfers in, 27 out. Rank impact from 64 to 33. Alex Golish getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, unsurprising here, the driver is going to be players from USF. Also unsurprising, the fact that that starts with the quarterback, Byron Brown, who we have as our number 3 quarterback, but he's bringing over offensive linemen from USF. He's poaching O-linemen from Miami and JMU. He's bringing over his safety, Fred Gaskins. He's bringing over his receiver, Keyshawn Singleton. A lot of movement from USF. Out of those 39 players inbound, 13 of them, a third, came from USF.
So they got the experience at QB with Byron Brown. They did lose the 5-star high school QB commit, Deuce Knight. He left for Ole Miss. So
Number 3, Wisconsin. It had to have gotten better from last year's most difficult schedule in the country. 33 transfers in, 19 out. Rank impact, 74 to 37. Quite the jump.
Hey, I mean, when you're getting Colton Joseph, our number 4 QB out of ODU, that's a big pickup.
Jacob was on this as soon as that transfer was announced. Wisconsin getting that credit feels just right.
yeah, that's huge. I think he's one of the best QBs in the portal. Colton Joseph does it through the air and on the ground. He led that Old Dominion team. Like, he's going to be balling. Wisconsin, that's 2 more wins automatically for him. Chalk it up right there.
Get your bowl tickets now.
We track both how that quarterback credit is allocated from their passing play and from their dual threat. This is our highest rated dual threat quarterback in terms of his running abilities. So he ranks ahead of both Byron Brown and Alonzo Barnett, both of whom are also really great dual threat quarterbacks.
This may become a story of it might be okay to not fire your coach right away if things start going south. Because if you can collect transfer classes like this and if they produce anywhere near they did last year, not bad. Not bad year to year. At number 2, UCLA. What? 3-9, 41 transfers in, 19 out. Rank impact from 93 to 44. Whoa.
And this is one where we're bringing over the team from JMU. Now we're bringing over our starting offensive lineman. You don't get Alonzo Barnett without protection, right? So we're bringing over offensive linemen from JMU. We're bringing over cornerbacks, running backs, like a whole bunch.
How many from JMU?
Of those 41 players in, James Madison accounts for only 10, but they're, I believe, with maybe one exception, they're all starters. I mean, these are we're talking Carter Swayze, Riley Robel on the offensive line, DJ Barksdale at corner, Sahir West and Aiden Gobira on the defensive line, players who produce really well at JMU. And we know, I mean, this is a JMU team that went to the playoffs, and now they're coming to the Big Ten.
Your number 1 portal class of 2026.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys with a rating impact of 834 points. This would bump their rank all the way up from 123rd to 64th in the country. Eric Morris leading the way, bringing in a lot of talent with him, looking like the best coach from the American to get poached this year, in my opinion. He's got his work cut out for him there in Stillwater, though.
54 transfers in, 49 out.
Yeah, I mean, they're bringing over what we consider to be the two highest production offensive players outside of the quarterback position in Caleb Hawkins at running back and Wyatt Young at wide receiver. One of Drew Mistemaker's preferred targets is coming along with him. And I mean, Caleb Hawkins could be the starting running back just about anywhere in the country. He is awesome. And he's a freshman, too. So that is some real talent coming over to start for the Oklahoma State Mean Orange.
Yeah, there might not be near as much shirt waving in Stillwater next year. They're gonna be in a lot more games this year, and I guarantee you they're winning more than one game.
They'll be whipping those paddles against the pads now instead of whipping their shirts around.
Nothing better than seeing them pounding the paddles down on the pads.
Hey, they also got North Texas's highest, their leading tackler, linebacker Ethan Wislowski. I don't know how to say that. Sorry, Ethan. They're bringing up production on both sides of the ball, too. It's not just that high-octane offense.
Let's talk about the bottom 10 portal classes according to the S&D 50, because it just wouldn't be right to only talk about the best. We also have to talk about the least best. At number 10, Plank, Kennesaw State. 3 transfers in, 6 transfers out. Rank impact from 59 to 84.
This is what happens when you're a good G5 team. You get rated.
Yep, you win a conference title, you're done.
Sorry.
At number 9, Toledo. Toledo loses their head coach and so much more. 8 transfers in, 27 transfers out. Rank impact 68 to 91. At number 8, shocker, Ohio State. 17 transfers in, 29 out. Rank impact from 6 to 13.
Ohio State lost a bunch of their offensive line room. They lost James Peoples, the running back, Bryce West, and Aaron Scott Jr. cornerbacks. In eras past, these are players who logged minutes, weren't starters, but were ready to be starters in their junior, senior year. But now they're just going for a payday somewhere else. I mean, they're going places like Kentucky, Utah, Virginia Tech, Miami of Ohio even, Colorado, Penn State, Wisconsin, Oregon, USF, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Louisville, the list goes on. I think this is what you're going to see every year sometimes with these big schools where there's not a lot of draft players, is you're going to see a lot of transfer outs because they can go get paid and get playing time elsewhere.
At number 7, FIU. FIU had so many opt-outs in their bowl game. Those opt-outs went elsewhere. 3 transfers in, 12 transfers out. Rank impact 80 to 105.
Yeah, and they lost their starting quarterback. That will kill you. So Keon Jenkins from FIU to UCF.
At number 6, Georgia Southern. Clay Helton had Georgia Southern humming. 6 transfers in, 7 out. Rank impact 65 to 96.
If you see that much movement, you know what it is.
Quarterback.
Yep. Their quarterback, J.C. French, committed to Cincinnati.
They did bring in Max Johnson, quarterback from North Carolina, though. So got some Bill Belichick experience coming in.
Gosh.
He was a 4-star QB coming out of high school.
At number 5, USF. Head coach gone. 38 transfers in, 27 transfers out, but those 27 drop the Bulls from 40 to 75. How many Ohio State players have now moved to USF, Spencer?
Just 2. CJ Hicks and Bryson Rogers.
Positions?
Linebacker and wide receiver, respectively.
At number 4, East Carolina. 11 in, 14 out. Rank impact from 51 to 89.
Quarterback. I mean, this is where we're going to see that impact play out over and over and over again. ECU losing their starting quarterback, Caden Hauser, to Illinois. We already talked about that's the number 7 QB. Well, that's big rating points.
Yeah, they brought in a former 3-star QB out of Miami to replace him in Emory Williams. So we'll see if they can have another redemption story or one of the Forgottens comes to East Carolina, just like Hauser did.
I mean, they got Texas Tech backup as well, Mitch Griffiths. Not even their number one backup. They're looking for a QB battle down there, I think. Maybe Mr. Beast can get involved.
Yeah, there's some graphic going around saying that Mr. Beast is considering giving lots of money to East Carolina. Now, if it actually happens, I doubt it will actually happen. But if it does, that would be beautiful.
At number 3, Old Dominion. You lose Colton Joseph, you lose a lot. Rank impact 21-52, 6 transfers in, 12 out. At number 2, North Texas. Shocker. If Oklahoma State is number 1, North Texas is going to be just gutted. 29 in, 24 out. Rank impact from 20 to 77. Number 1 least best portal class of 2026. James Madison. Lose your coach, lose your team. 25 transfers in, 19 out. Rank impact from 15 to 67.
Lose your starters, basically.
Have a good season in the G5. This is what happens.
Yeah, I think they lost the majority of their starters, like if not nearly all of them.
Ugh, brutal.
Let's talk about the transfers by the numbers. Some kind of interesting tidbits of these transfers by the numbers, starting with the most net transfers out. So we talked about those ratings. Let's just talk about the number of people that left schools. Oklahoma at 8 net transfers out. FIU with 9 leaving. USC 10. Florida State also at 10. Ohio State with 12 out. Bowling Green with 12 out. Oregon with 12 out. Washington State and Oregon State, the Pac-2, both lost a net 13 players, and Toledo leads the way with net transfers out of 19 players. That's 27 players out for them, only 8 back in. Highest on this list, though, for overall out is Florida State with 32 players transferring out. That net negative 10 came from only 22 players coming back in.
The ranks on the left are the transfer rating ranks in the S&D 50 by class.
Yeah, so this is their transfer portal class ranking.
And Ohio State with a transfer portal class ranking of 129. Stat that.
Now for our most net transfers in. These are the teams that picked up the most players overall. And in some cases, looking at you, UConn, despite having more than 30 players leave. So we got Temple with 14 net players in. Wake Forest and Purdue both had 15. Tulsa brought in 16 more than they lost. UConn and Arkansas with net 17. UConn with an impressive 49 players in compared to just 32 out. Virginia had net 19 players in. UCLA had 22. Kansas with 24. And Memphis brought in 51 players, lost 25 for a net total of 26 players inbound. It's interesting, too, because you'd think Memphis would maybe be more on the outbound side because Ryan Silverfield went to go coach at Arkansas. You'd think there'd be more of that transition like we saw with Matt Campbell going to Penn State or Alex Golish going to Auburn. But no, just Memphis brought in a lot of folks.
This graphic is important to note because just because you bring in the most transfers, it doesn't result in the highest rated transfer class, as seen as Memphis at 21 in the S&D portal rankings.
All right, let's talk through transfers by conference.
So the rank you see on the left is the portal class S&D rankings for each conference. But if we just look at net total gained and lost, Jacob, the FCS gutted. Minus 387 players out, 90 players in. The unspoken tragedy of the transfer portal era is the FCS.
Do we add the whole North Dakota State team now to this as well?
This was pre-North Dakota State, so yeah, you could take that whole roster and pile it on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the unfortunate thing of modern transfer portal / NIL. There's the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots are definitely in the FCS. And so that you have a good year, can't blame the kid. He's going to go get some money.
MAC down 43 players. The Sun Belt down 29. The Pac-12 down 10. Mountain West down 5. Conference USA down 3. Big Ten up 29. ACC up 62. SEC up 62. American at number 2 in most transfers in. A net total transfers in at 70. And the Big 12 with 94 net total transfers in.
We saw those rankings on the last slide. Here's where that actually comes from, is the net transfer rating of each conference. But another fun fact you see here is the intra-conference transfer value. So that is the total value of points that went from one team in the conference to another. And look at that explosion of SEC movement. 1,487 production points moved from one SEC team to a different SEC team. That accounts for 102 players. SEC teams to SEC teams was the single biggest pathway from one group to another of any set of transfers this offseason. What's interesting about that is there were more players that went from an SEC team to an SEC team than went from the entire FCS to any one Power 5 conference. Yeah, 102 players moved between SEC teams. Highest FCS inbound was to the Big 12. The Big 12 took in 73 teams from the FCS. Highest P5 to P5 channel that wasn't the same conference was there were 76 Big 12 players that went to the Big 10. 30% more than that is the over 100 SEC players that just swapped schools.
Just means more.
I guess so. More money, more paydays.
More transfers.
Yeah. Shuffle the deck and try again.
All right, housekeeping. Thank you so much if you've made it this far in the episode. We adore you. We are going to take a break for a little while. We will keep putting out shorts content. You'll see medium content from this episode. Our preseason rankings will come out Wednesday, July 15th. We will take into account coaching. We will take into account resetting the deck of rosters along with these transfer portal rankings and ratings. And we cannot wait to release them then.
Yeah, we're going to work a lot on our model, fine-tune the impact from coaching carousel, graduating seniors, inbound freshmen, all the things that we've got to take into consideration to come out to a database preseason ranking, not just a gut check or a good feeling. We're excited to prepare that. We might drop a surprise episode or two in the offseason, especially to talk about things like coaches, but unless you see anything on our channel, it'll all be shorter form content until the preseason rolls around in July.
We're going to release all 136 for the preseason rankings. So that rankings will drip out starting at 136, leading up to 1 at the start of the season.
Yep. And then as always, once we get into next season, if you want the full 136 and not just the 50 we talk about on the show, be sure to join our Patreon. Our patrons get access to the full 136 and ratings. Our patrons will also get more access to the full 136 from the transfer portal evaluation. They'll get the coaching carousel evaluation when that drops sometime in the offseason. So if you're really interested in supporting the show, come throw $1 at us on the Patreon. You know, we're not trying to gouge you, but come support us. We love what we do.
And we appreciate every single one of you who are already Patreon members. Spencer, thank you for being here. What a couple weeks we had putting this together. You crushed it.
Yeah, that was a lot of data, a lot of scraping. Thanks to you, Drew, on working all the web resources out there, from Sports Reference to 247 to other websites that help get data for us. Credit to those websites, sportsreference.com in particular. You know, if you cite their stuff, you're supposed to cite them. So this is us citing Sports Reference. Helped us a lot with those season stats.
Jacob, thank you for being here. You bring the insight we all need.
Hey, I just feel like we all just were enlightened on the 50 teams that start to do a little better next year than last year. Hey, if you just tuned into this episode, you're not surprised. So I'm already ready for next year. I'm like, look at this portal, look at these teams. Oklahoma State, let's go Big 12. Let's see the magic happen.
This data was really hard to find. There's no one consensus website out there that can define how many transfers go where. So we're very grateful we were able to scrape it together. Thank you again to all of the resources online, like Spencer said, that helped us make this. We hope you have an amazing summer, an amazing spring. We will talk to you in July. Until then, take care. We love you all.
Bye.
Michigan didn't make the top 50. And they brought in some talent, like North Dakota State's linebacker, Nathan Staling, team captain.